Okay, in this lesson, I'd like to take a look at actions in Photoshop. An action is like a little recording that you would make when you want it to repeat the same process over and over again on different folders and files in Photoshop on your desktop. So let's take a look at where actions is. If I go up to Window, right here is the action palette. I'm going to pull that up. By default, it has a bunch of just some actions that Photoshop is offering to you. They're saying, hey, you don't want to give this a wooden frame. Why don't I go on and just do that so that you can see when I actually play that action? It's going to say, hey, this needs to be 100 pixels wide and tall. I say, okay. And you can see what it did. It created an action right here of giving us a frame. So there are other actions, and you can play an action on top of an action. So really what I want to do here is create my own action. And to make it really simple, I'm just going to go up here and I'm going to clear all the actions so we don't see all these that Photoshop is just offering you. Go on and play with these, they're wonderful, but I'm going to clear all actions so you can see that this palette pops up pretty, I can make it empty if I need to. Just to avoid any complications, I am going to click on the background. It's locked right now, and I'm just going to make it a layer rather than a locked background. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, I am going to go up here and I'm going to say I want to create a new action. When I create a new action, and I could call this Rose, I could give it a name if I want to. I actually am going to click record. When I click record, you're going to see that there's a little red record indicator that everything I do now is going to be recorded. So let's do some simple, really basic things. Let's just do a crop. Let's say I want to crop out some information. I like that, so I'm going to hit either the check mark, enter, or return. And then I want to make this into a grayscale black and white image. So I'm doing that. Let's say I like that. As I'm making these adjustments, you're seeing that this is being recorded in the actions. I am going to go up to image, let's go to image size, and let's make this a little smaller. Let's make this like 1000, right? So I've reduced the overall size of this as well, and you can see where I did it image size. Let's say that I knew I needed to make that same 3 changes on other images, and I'm fine. I could also do file save as. I could tell it to go into a folder, but I'm going to click stop. At this point, what happens is that I have an action here called Rose, and I can apply this to another image if I want to. And so you kind of created a template, or what's called a macro, so that I can replay this over and over again. Let's go take a look and see what happens. If I open up an image that I have here and I just hit play, you can see that it applied those 3 actions to that particular image here. So I was able to, I can move around here a little bit so you can see. But it would play that to another image. If I had a whole folder on my desktop that needed this action played, I could go to File, Automate, and have a batch action. There's my action. I would click on Folder and go choose a folder on my desktop or in Documents or somewhere that needs to have this stuff, a particular action done. I could also create a destination to tell it to put everything as it is, applying these changes. And then I could click OK, and it would just go on and play this to 1, 10, 100 or more different images, whatever would be in your folder. Okay, let's take a look at artboards in Photoshop. Artboards is something that has always been in Illustrator, and a few versions ago, Artboards popped up in Photoshop. So let's take a look at first like how to create something in an artboard. So let's just go create new. And rather than going to print or art and illustration film like we have looked at already, I'm actually going to go to mobile device. And right here from the launching, what they call the splash page here, the launching part of Photoshop, you can pick different like iPhone or iPad and other default templates right here. And of course, we have all kinds of interesting things that are already created that you just put your content in, basically mobile mock-ups. But I'm going to go with the basic dimensions of an iPhone 10, and I am going to click Create. When I do that, you're going to see the dimensions of an iPhone 10 pop up. Now I'm going to take a look at artboards, and it just seems like this is very intuitive to talk about artboards at this point when we're talking about mobile and web orientation. So when we're looking at the Move tool, which we have spent a lot of time looking at the Move tool this semester, nest it right in there, something called artboards. Artboards are kind of like you have layers within artboards where you have your content. If we look over at our layers panel, you're going to see that there is a layer here and that I could start to create and make something. I can make multiple artboards. I have to be on the artboard tool though in order to do that, and I have to make sure that I am move back. Here we go. Back to the artboard. I will see these little circles here, so I can make a couple different artboards here. I'm going to undo that and undo that again and just go back to that first artboard. So there's a lot of really cool options. I'm gonna create some content here, okay? So I need to make sure I'm on the layer while I'm creating content. And I'm just gonna, create something that so that we can make a copy of it and kind of discuss what this. I'm going to make a rectangular marquee, and I'm just going to fill it with the foreground color. I'm going to get rid of my selection, select deselect. I'm going to grab the type tool, and I'm just going to type HCC. I'm going to grab the move tool and let my guides help me kind of get this centered. And then maybe I'll make one, something that might look like a button or a circle here. Maybe something that you would click to go to another site somewhere, a link of some form. So, you know what, I got to make sure I'm on the layer. By default, it popped up there to the artboard. I actually could even create, like on a new layer, I could create this and just go edit, fill, right? And fill it with the foreground color. So I just have created a basic artboard. I only have one artboard here. There's really not a lot going on. I could use my guides to get that centered properly. And now that I have this selected here, I'm going to go up to the actual artboard. I'm going to collapse that because it gets so big. I'm on the artboard now, and if I go over here and I get the artboard tool, I can just click here and make a copy from this point. If I wanted to, at this point, I could also hold down the Option key and I could make a duplicate of this artboard. And then maybe this one I'd want to change the color of the button possibly here. Let's see. I want to change that to a different color now for, that it would link and take me to a different page. Maybe I want that to just be black. So you can kind of see that I'm basically creating artboards. What's really neat, if I go back onto this artboard copy here, I had artboard 1, which was the green circle, and now I have artboard, well, it's actually artboard 1 copy. Artboard 1 copy, this one, let's say for instance I'm working on this and I think, you know what, I really want to see this, let me go up here and get the artboard tool. I want to see this in a different layout or a different format. You know, what would this look like if it were for the iPhone 5? Or what would this look like if it were for an iPad? And it will give me the dimensions of the iPad and how, you know, these different layouts would translate, you know, for different mobile devices. And so, of course, I can change the dimensions of anything here in the artboards. I can change the width and the height. And so, as you saw, that all these different presets here are reiterated when you are in the artboard tool right here. These are the exact same presets. So after we get this, there's a lot of really interesting things that you can do with artboards. I'm going to just go up to help and I'm going to type in artboards, and I want to go through some of the different things. You can export artboards as an artboard to a file. You can export artboards as a PDF. You can create a new artboard the way I showed you, or just go to Layer, New, and create a new artboard there. New artboard from a group, new artboard from a layer. You can align artboards, and you can fit all the artboards on a screen. You can show the guides. So there's a lot of options. And you can obviously, if we go to File, Export, and we look here, we can export these artboards as different files or just as a PDF if you need to send this to someone. For example, let's say that you are designing a mobile app for a client or possibly a website, and you know you are going to send them what it would look like to kind of get an approval or to make sure that you're designing it in the style that they want this. You could export your artboards as a PDF and send that PDF to your client and get approval before you start actually creating the mobile app. So that is a little bit about artboards in Photoshop.